Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
It is Thursday, January the 1st, 2025. Happy New Year. This is Faithon with a better late than never episode of The Swamp, covering news and updates for December 31st. We have an update on the Epstein files release from Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who says they continue working around the clock toward releasing everything. The deadline for release was back on December the 19th. A number of officials provide updates on the ongoing Somali fraud in Minnesota, including President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, the GOP Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Health and Human Services Deputy Director Jim O'Neill, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. And yesterday, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announced another strike on a narcoterrorist vessel, and we will check out the unclassified footage. The Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit against the state of Virginia because they provide taxpayer-funded in-state tuition benefits to illegal immigrant students. And the FBI and other federal agencies continue hunting down top 10 most wanted drug trafficker Ryan Wedding, who is believed to be hiding in Mexico. The feds, along with Mexican authorities, just seized a massive collection of his motorcycles valued at over $40 million. And the Washington Monument received a makeover in celebration of America's semi-quincentennial celebration this year. Also, the U.S. Mint released the coin designs celebrating America's 250th birthday. And there's a lot more that happened, so we're going to dive right in. And if you enjoy the video, please give the video a quick like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the daily updates. And if you leave a comment below, I might just read it on tomorrow's episode. And every article you'll see in this video will be linked in the description below. So we're going to start things off right away with Todd Blanche. Update on our Epstein files review. The DOJ lawyers from Maine Justice, FBI, the SDFL and SDNY are working around the clock through the holidays, including Christmas and New Year's, to review documents in compliance with federal law. It is truly an all-hands-on-deck approach, and we're asking as many lawyers as possible to commit their time to review the documents that remain. Required redactions to protect victims take time, but they will not stop these materials from being released. The Attorney General's and this administration's goal is simple: transparency and protecting victims. At least let's hope so. I mean, look, they're late. They're really late. They were supposed to release everything on December the 19th, so they're coming up on 2 weeks late. So they're already out of compliance with federal law, and it's very frustrating to say the least. And hopefully, any minute now, any day now, we'll get all the rest of the documents. But according to the DOJ, they're going to keep releasing them in batches. So they will be dropping them on justice.gov/Epstein, right? Yeah, justice.gov/Epstein. No, I'm not a robot. And this is the Epstein library. I'll link that below, even though it's extremely easy to remember. So they've got the full Epstein library. They've got a search bar so you can go through specifics, court records, DOJ disclosures, the Freedom of Information Act, House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform disclosures. And you could click on any of these and it'll take you to all the list of all these archives. There's tons of photos already, tons of documents that they've released, so on and so forth. So that will be linked below for you. And moving on to Rapid Response 47, Press Secretary on the rampant Somali fraud in Minnesota. Quote, the Department of Justice, as we speak, is continuing to execute search warrants and subpoenas. People will be in handcuffs as a result of the fraud that Governor Tim Walz has allowed to occur for many, many years, over a decade, in fact. And hopefully, one pair of those handcuffs will find its way on the wrists of Governor Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar and all the other corrupt Democrat politicians. Probably not just the ones in Minnesota, but also the fraud that we're starting to uncover in the state of Washington, also in Columbus, Ohio. I believe there's some Somali-related fraud happening. I think I read maybe in California. There's several areas around the country where Somali fraud's occurring. It's not just in Minnesota, but anyway, let's hear the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt.
Governor Walz is completely incompetent. He always has been, and President Trump has long called him out for his incompetence and his poor leadership in the great state of Minnesota. I want to commend Nick Shirley for his incredible video in real journalism that went viral this past week. He epitomizes what new media looks like, and that's exactly why we at the White House, under President Trump's direction, have embraced new media journalists like Nick Shirley. We've welcomed them in to the White House press pool. We invited Nick Shirley to brief the President of the United States at an Antifa roundtable earlier this year. And this fraud in Governor Walz's state in Minnesota is something the Trump administration has been working on since day one. And since Nick Shirley's journalism really brought this issue further to light, we have surged resources across the board to the state. So I want your audience to understand this is a top priority for the administration. The Department of Justice, as we speak, is continuing to execute search warrants and subpoenas. People will be in handcuffs as a result of the fraud that Governor Walz has allowed to occur for many, many years. The Department of Homeland Security is conducting door-to-door investigations on the ground at potential fraud sites, and they're also, of course, conducting continued deportations of illegal aliens in Minnesota's communities. We're also not afraid to use denaturalization. That's a tool at the President and the Secretary of State's disposal, and it's one this administration has previously used before. I know the Health and Human Services Department has also announced we are cutting off all child care funding to the state of Minnesota until we get to the bottom of this fraud. The Department of Labor is investigating their unemployment insurance program. The Department of USDA Agriculture Secretary Rollins weeks ago sent a letter to Governor Walz demanding he turn over every single name of SNAP recipients on the books in Minnesota. And the Minnesota Attorney General actually sued the Trump administration for that. What are they hiding?
Oh shit, I was muted. So yeah, as Karoline Leavitt said, the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Labor, the DOJ, the FBI, there's a number of government agencies that are hot on the trail with regard to all this fraud that's occurring. I believe it was the Department of Labor and I believe it might have also been the Department of Agriculture. They've already froze millions of dollars in funds that were directed to Minnesota because they want to fully investigate the fraud first before they release any more taxpayer funds. And by the way, if retardation had a face, it would definitely be Governor Tim Walz. And of course, by retarded, I don't mean clinical special needs retarded. I'm talking incompetent, reckless, culturally retarded. Okay, so this is from Rapid Response 47. Quote, does President Trump want those Somalis to have their citizenship revoked if convicted of fraud? Press Secretary says absolutely. And it's something the DHS, the State Department, they're currently looking into it right now.
Does President Trump want those Somalis to have their citizenship revoked if convicted of fraud?
Absolutely. And it's something the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of State is currently looking at right now. It's something this administration has already done. And we know that there are liberal activist judges across the country who will try to block and tackle this administration from pursuing justice at every turn. But that's not going to stop the president and his entire cabinet by acting on behalf of law-abiding, tax-paying citizens in the state of Minnesota and in states across the country who have been ripped off by people who abused our immigration system, came to our country, do not love our country or respect our values, and now have been ripping off and stealing money from law-abiding Americans. This administration is not going to tolerate it. And again, this is a whole of government effort. We've surged resources. As you pointed out, the Department of Justice has already charged and prosecuted nearly 100 people. In fact, some of the buildings and some of the sites that Nick Shirley exposed in that video are under current investigation by the Department of Justice.
Well, yeah, that's probably how Nick Shirley got the information to investigate those daycare centers. I'm sure that he probably printed out something that had its origins in public record, and he decided to make a video on it, and it was a pretty genius move,
One of those sites, the Midway building, resulted in 13 defendants already being charged earlier this year under the leadership of our Attorney General and President Trump. So that is definitely going to continue.
All right, so we got that And we have this from Tom Emmer, President of the United States and his all-star administration are working around the clock to investigate, prosecute, and remove Somali fraudsters from the United States. President Trump agrees. Send them home.
You mentioned the denaturalization. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, a congressman from Minnesota, has called for all of the Somalis that are convicted of fraud to have their citizenship revoked. We know so far, according to Pam Bondi, that 98 of the people charged, 85 are of Somali descent. Does President Trump want those Somalis to have their citizenship revoked?
Look, not only them, I believe that anyone who received their citizenship, and do we give it a threshold within 10 years or maybe permanently, like for the rest of their lives, if somebody commits a felony and they are an immigrant that immigrated into the U.S., even after they received their citizenship, maybe that's a little over the line. I don't know, but I wouldn't be exactly that opposed to revoking citizenship and deporting anyone who commits felonies in the U.S. So that's just my take.
Convicted of fraud.
Absolutely. And it's something the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of State is currently looking at right now. It's something this administration has already done. And we know that there are liberal activist judges across the country who will try to block and tackle this administration from pursuing justice at every turn.
Maybe there's already laws on the books for that. That's not going to stop the president
and his entire cabinet by acting on behalf of law-abiding, tax-paying citizens in the state of Minnesota and in states across the country who have been ripped off by people who abused our immigration system, came to our country, do not love our country or respect our values, and now have been ripping off and stealing money from law-abiding Americans. This administration is not going to tolerate it.
Okay, I believe that's all I got from Karoline Leavitt, and we'll move on to Eric Doherty. Same general topic. Just in, and President Trump is calling out the Somali daycare in Minnesota, bizarrely claiming their important documents were stolen during an overnight break-in. A total fraud. Nobody buys what this Somali quote-unquote manager is selling. Shut it down. And yeah, man, this dude came out. He's supposed to be the manager. I think it's the Leering Center manager, actually, who makes this statement like, oh no, just last night or just in the last week, somebody just broke into our office and they stole our ledgers and our financial documents. And now all of a sudden we can't show any proof of where the money went. And I'm sure there was an investigation on this since he reported it. Doubt he reported it on the day of when he showed up and appears that the office was ransacked or whatever. What else did they steal? Did they steal anything else of value, or was it just the ledgers they were after? And if that was it, why were they just specifically going after these ledgers? That doesn't make a lot of sense. So anyway, Donald J. Trump, a total fraud. Minnesota Somali-run daycare bizarrely reports all their important documents about childcare were stolen in a mysterious break-in. Let's take a look at this.
Yesterday morning, I was called by the owner because unfortunately someone came in to our daycare. We looked and saw what happened.
Someone came in. Oh no.
The suspect came in from the back, broke in from the back kitchen, and he also destroyed the wall to come in. As we walked around the daycare, we saw
destroyed the wall.
Our office doors was broken into as well.
Even this lady doesn't believe this shit.
We saw that.
Unfortunately, like, what?
We saw that there was important documentation, enrollment of the children, and also employee documentation that was gone.
She's like, I don't believe this shit.
There were also checkbooks that were ripped from our check papers that were ripped from our book.
Well, guess what, you dumbass? Banks, they've got a paper trail. It's not just the documents that are inside the building. We're in the 21st century. We live in the era of the information superhighway. The DOJ, the feds, they've got an unbelievable amount of tools at their disposal, and they're going to get to the bottom of it whether if you have the ledger or not. Just because you torch a ledger full of fraudulent information doesn't mean you're not going to be charged with anything.
This is devastating news, and we don't know why this is targeting our Somali community, as one video made by a specific individual made this all happen.
What, are you going to try to suggest that it was the feds? Or maybe it was the Trump administration that destroyed it? They would be the very last people that would want to destroy it because that's evidence that they're going to use to prosecute you.
We've been receiving hateful messages through our voice notes threatening us the past couple of days.
Well, yeah, you defrauded the American people of $9 billion, you assholes.
When the break-in,
of course people are pissed off.
This is frightening and exhausting because...
Look, death threats, I would not justify that at all. That is a no-no. Don't make death threats.
Somali Americans. we are supposed to stand with each other and help each other through everything that's happening. This is also sad that a video can cause all of this. I want to say that there are hundreds of daycares out there, Somali daycares that are out there.
Fraudulent daycares.
Help our children and everyone in our community. We have high quality daycares, and this is very sad news that.
Yeah, including a daycare where they can't spell the word learning. The Leering Center can't even spell the freaking word learning.
One individual who made a false claim about fraud that is happening in the daycares, how engaged everyone else to come and do this to us.
Okay, dude, whatever. He obviously, I don't think he even believes his own bullshit. All right, so this comes from Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI. Some important details from the FBI's ongoing Minnesota fraud investigation. And he reposted Catherine Herridge, who is, I know Catherine Herridge, Emmy-winning investigative journalist. And I can't remember what outlet she, I believe, isn't she a political pundit on Fox News? I think. I'm sure she's probably on other news entities. So anyway, she says, breaking, FBI Director Kash Patel says fraud probes buried under Biden. Patel has been tracking Minnesota probes for months. Patel went to Minnesota in July to oversee the investigations to confirm progress was being made. So this isn't new, man. They've been doing this for the better part of a year. Patel says investigations were opened under the Biden administration and alleges the probes were buried because it potentially implicated Biden administration allies. Well, of course it does. Between late May 2025 and December of 25, FBI had 16 open investigations into approximately 32 healthcare and home care providers accused of fraud. Described as massive, joint investigations including HHS Inspector General, Medicaid Fraud Unit, the IRS, the Postal Inspectors, the Minnesota Attorney General, the Minnesota Department of Education, and other agencies. Probes are now expanding in Minnesota. Investigators are exploring nationwide fraud schemes. The FBI is surging forensic accountants and data analytics teams to Minnesota. They're identifying fraud, then following the money to see the entire web. Investigating potential leaks or links. Let me say that one more time. Investigating potential links to elected officials and terrorist financing. Also, potential crime or criminal violations include public corruption, fraud, cyber fraud, healthcare fraud, home care fraud, and money laundering. Investigations include federal nutrition programs. These investigations, including daycare facilities, are exploring links to alleged fraud involving federal nutrition programs. The Feeding Our Future probe exposed an alleged $250 million fraud scheme that obtained federal funding during the COVID era for nutrition programs, but almost no meals were provided to children. The number that I've read in the past, it was like 1,300 meals or 1,500 meals, but they were supposed to be serving millions of meals. And yeah, like less than 2,000 meals were handed out. It's alleged the monies were laundered through multiple entities to enrich the participants. 78 people have been indicted, 57 convicted, 2 found not guilty among the group. And I'm assuming this is a very tiny number in comparison to the overall number of people participating in this fraud, including those at the very, very top of the pyramid, Governor Tim Walz and the deep state Democrats, the elected Democrats, the squad. You know, they're all involved in this shit. Of course, that's just a personal opinion. I'm not saying I got documentation to back that up per se, although I'm sure they're going to get to the bottom of it. The big question is, are we going to continue living in a two-tier justice system in which they get, at worst, a slap on the wrist? Or is it just going to be another situation where it's like, oh, we're going to look into it indefinitely? All right, so this comes from JD Vance. Turning off payments and forcing verification before taxpayer money flows out the door is one of the most important steps we can take to end the fraud in Minnesota, but there will be many more to come. And this is from Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill with Health and Human Services. I almost said housing, but no, that's HUD. This is HHS, Health and Human Services Deputy Secretary. And he says, we have frozen all child care payments to the state of Minnesota. So there is no federal funding as of today that's going into the state of Minnesota until they, I'm assuming, conclude their investigation. You have probably read the serious allegations that the state of Minnesota has funneled millions of taxpayer dollars to fraudulent daycares across Minnesota for over the past decade. Today, we have taken 3 actions against the blatant fraud that appears to be rampant in Minnesota and across the country. And number 1, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF payments. Starting today, all ACF payments across America will require a justification and a receipt or photo evidence before we send money to a state. Number 2, Alex Adams and I have identified the individuals in Nick Shirley's excellent work. I have demanded from Governor Tim Walz a comprehensive audit of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections. And number 3, we have launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov, which will be linked below. Whether you are a parent, provider, or member of the general public, we want to hear from you. We have turned off the money spigot and we are finding the fraud. And you also tagged in ACFHHS and let's see, federal agency supporting economic and social well-being of families, children, individuals, and communities. And also, of course, HHS, Health and Human Services. And he even tags in a video here. So let's check this out.
Hello, I'm HHS Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill. I'm here with Assistant Secretary Alex Adams. Alex oversees the Administration for Children and Families. Intrepid journalists have made shocking and credible allegations of extensive fraud in Minnesota's child care programs. We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade.
My office, ACF, provides Minnesota $185 million in child care funds each year. That money should be helping 19,000 American children, including toddlers and infants. Any dollar stolen by fraudsters is stolen from those children. Yesterday, I spoke directly with the director of the Minnesota Child Care Services Office. She could not tell me with confidence whether those allegations of fraud are isolated or whether there's fraud stretching statewide.
Today, we have taken 3 direct actions against the blatant fraud that seems to be rampant in Minnesota. First, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF child care payments across America. Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment. Second, I have just signed and sent a demand letter to Governor Walz. I required a full 360 review of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections.
And third, we've launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov. Whether you're a parent, a provider, a member of the public, we want to hear from you. Let me be crystal clear. ACF expects every state to uphold the highest standards of oversight, monitoring, and accountability for federal dollars. Minnesota is no exception.
We're committed to holding bad actors accountable. Regardless of rank or office, anyone who's involved in perpetrating this fraud against the American people should expect to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Well, let's hope so.
Produced by the U.S. Department.
Both of those guys, they look like top tier elite nerds, which is exactly what we need right now. We need nothing short of wizards to tackle the rampant fraud, not just from immigrants, but also state governments like California with the high-speed rail fraud, the homeless program fraud, etc. So anyway, this is on childcare.gov. And he says that there's a number and an email address in here somewhere. So let me try to find that. All right, it looks like it's down here at the bottom. Contact information and reporting resources. And general inquiries, report suspected child care fraud, and questions related to child care resources. Contact childcare.gov. And it looks like the email is going to be childcare.gov@acf.hhs.gov. And the phone number they provided is 202-690-6782. So if you know anything with regard to childcare fraud or anything, even if I'm sure that they'll even accept a personal experience that you dealt with shady business from some daycare facility that you believe or you know to have been receiving, whether it's federal funds or maybe even state level funds. I'm sure they'd be interested in state level fraud as well. And we'll go ahead and roll on down to the next thing. I'm sure it's going to be the same topic. Of course it is. From the White House, from yesterday, much of the Minnesota fraud, up to 90%, is caused by people that came into our country illegally from Somalia. President Donald J. Trump. And his post reads, much of the Minnesota fraud, up to 90%, is caused by people that came into our country illegally from Somalia. Congresswoman Omar, an ungrateful loser who only complains and never contributes, is one of the many scammers. Did she really marry her brother? Lowlifes like this can only be a liability to our country's greatness. Send them back from where they came. Somalia, perhaps the worst and most corrupt country on earth. Make America great again. And another piece of information that keeps circulating around is that Somalia's annual GDP is roughly $9 billion, which just so happens to be the amount of money that they've stolen from the state of Minnesota. Fancy that. The entire GDP of Somalia taken from a single state by Somali immigrants. All right, so this comes from Libs of TikTok. I just received a message from a TSA agent in Phoenix who tells me a Somali man with a Minnesota driver's license flies through Phoenix every 7 to 10 days with a suitcase of around $250,000 in cash. He told agents that families in Minnesota send cash back home to Sudan and Somalia through Dubai, and he is a registered courier. I have the passenger's name. If anyone from the Transportation Department or FBI want to investigate, you can reach out for me. And Libs of TikTok tags FBI response, FBI rapid response rather, and the U.S. DOT. And here's an image that was shared. Had a guy come through TSA Phoenix with over $350K in cash. We had a Minnesota DL and had paperwork for customs in Dubai and allegedly had paperwork saying he's a courier. While my supervisor left the private screening room, he told me openly that families in Minneapolis are sending loads of cash back home to Sudan and Somalia, and it gets distributed in Dubai somehow. I talked to my supervisor after he cleared him for travel, and he says he comes in once a week or every 10 days with no less than $250,000 in cash, and the most they've seen is $1.6 million. I have sent this to Nick, and I'm assuming that would be Nick, the YouTuber who just blew the lid wide open on the rampant daycare fraud that's going on. So they're doing this shit right out in the open. And of course, I'm sure that this guy, this courier, he's probably been doing exactly that since probably the beginning of the Biden administration. And it was probably the Biden era feds who most likely approved his courier status. I don't know if you have to be licensed, but I do know that if you have more than $10,000 in cash and you're traveling with it, it's got to be declared. So you have to prove where it came from, and I believe that you have to at least give them at least a statement as to where the money is going. I mean, maybe it's not that detailed, but I mean, you do have to declare the money, and I'm assuming that information probably gets handed over to the IRS so they can at least flag it or at least verify or what have you. I mean, it's not illegal to carry $250,000 in cash. It's extremely stupid. But it's not illegal. You just have to prove that it's not drug money or laundered money or what have you. All right, anyway, Libs of TikTok. This one's a bit longer. So let's take a look at this. Yeah, I might as well play it. I mean, why not? It's New Year's Day. You know, there's not much going on today. So Libs of TikTok says, what? Former TSA agent says she saw Somali men flying out of Minnesota with suitcases filled with cash, over $1 billion over the last 5 years. They also once had a suitcase filled with brand new passports. They were always waved through. There's a trail at Secretary Duffy. Dude, they're all corrupt. It's not just the Somali immigrants. I'm telling you, man, there's federal agents, even federal agencies that are overseeing this. I don't know who it's quarterbacked through. Probably the CIA. That wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form, but let's give this a watch and see where this goes.
Suitcases filled with millions of dollars of cash. And the couriers
That's your money, by the way, they're taking.
Our Somali men traveling in pairs.
Your money.
And they got through the checkpoint. It just really absolutely blew my mind the first time you open a suitcase and you see millions of dollars of cash. And typically what would happen is a Leo or a law enforcement officer would come, check their credentials. I don't know what kind of questions they asked them, but their IDs were always documented, and probably their plane tickets as well. So,
well, and look, there's got to be a paper trail as to where the origin of that money came from. What bank was it distributed from? Or did it not come from a bank at all? Did it come from some government entity, like probably the CIA, for example, which, of course, there's not going to be a paper trail for that because doesn't the CIA have a long history of torching anything and everything that has to do with any operation that they're involved with?
So there is a trail of that out there. And I would believe with all the cameras at the airport that,
that too.
If they started there, they could probably find each and every individual that brought money through the checkpoint.
Obviously, this seems suspicious, if not alarming, given what seems to be a pattern here. So you're talking about millions of dollars flying out of Minneapolis, and you think it happened about every week or so? Is that right?
So it certainly seemed like it happened every week. The suitcases came in, and it was always, the MO was always two Somalian men traveling in pairs. Sometimes they both had suitcases. And so the process was, as a TSA agent, we would pull the bag, and then we'd bring them to a private screening room. And we would open the suitcase and make sure that that's all it was stacks of cash. And a Leo would come and maybe question them and for sure take a picture of their identification, and I'm assuming their plane ticket. I'm not sure. So there is a trail out there.
But not only that, but there's also a trail of approval. The law enforcement officer, the supervisor, who did they call to get the approval? And while they were waiting on hold for the approval, who did their superior call? There's got to be somewhere in the government, probably federal government, who okayed it, who signed off on it.
Between that, I mean, it has to be documented somewhere, and all the cameras in the airport, I would imagine if they'd like to find all this cash, they should start at the airport. Because in the 5 years I was there, I believe $1 billion went through the airport.
$1 billion. As if this isn't troubling enough, Liz, it's not just money. You watched leave MSP, is that right?
Yes, that is correct. There was another instance, again, a Somali man that had a carry-on luggage filled with brand new passports. And he was allowed to get through the checkpoint. So where he went with those passports is anybody's guess.
Absolutely insane.
This is really incredible to hear. So it sounds like you're raising alarms with your colleagues, but you have to wonder how many people knew about this. Where were they all back then?
That is a good question. And I don't know how my colleagues felt about it. I've been out of TSA for quite a few years. So since all this fraud came out, the connection's been made. I didn't feel good about it then, and now it certainly all makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Recently, the City Journal published an article stating that, quote, federal counterterrorism sources confirm that millions of dollars in stolen funds have been sent back to Somalia. And in talking about Al-Shabaab, a terrorist group there, they reported that a confidential source said the largest funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer.
Oh, yeah, of course it is.
Judging by what you saw for yourself during the time you were a TSA agent, do you think there's any truth to this?
Absolutely. Knowing what I know now, absolutely. There's no question in my mind that money went to Al-Shabaab.
It sounds like you've had a difficult time kind of living with this over these last few years.
Well, it's been uncomfortable because at the time, it seemed so lackadaisical that these people could get through the airport with all that cash. Time after time after time. It wasn't a one-time thing.
You know, at this point, more than a few Minnesotans have told us about suspected fraud. I've heard from state employees, business owners, even a commercial real estate broker who was telling me recently how they've just been bombarded with calls from members of the Somali community looking to rent any kind of office with just an address, just in case they get audited. They're actually openly admitting all of this.
Oh, yeah,
it just seems to be playing out, for everyone to see. But even fraud in Minnesota is now making national headlines. It still seems, though, like elected officials aren't really doing anything about it or trying to ignore it.
It is so frustrating. It was frustrating when I was a TSA agent, and it's certainly frustrating now watching the state's administration doing what they're doing. Walls and Omar, honestly, they should both resign in shame.
Why did you want to come forward and share your story?
Because I think Minnesotans need to know that billions of dollars left through the airport. And it was cash.
Right out in the open.
It was
Didn't
literally
even try to hide it.
suitcases full of cash.
So what is your message to our so-called leaders here in Minnesota?
That
Why?
this just should not be
Why would
allowed
you
to
do that?
happen. When they come through the airport, absolutely should not be able to bring suitcases full of cash. Who goes with millions of dollars in a suitcase week after week?
Well, and dude, these officials are not doing this just out of the kindness of their heart. Well, some of them probably are, to be honest. But there's got to be some financial incentive in them doing this because they're taking a risk. I mean, you're not going to take a risk of allowing people to send out hundreds of millions of dollars in cash on your watch, and you're not getting anything at all out of it.
Time after time, year after year. And all Somali people.
Okay, so that's that. And I'm curious to ask this question to Grok. How much U.S. currency does the CIA receive from the Treasury annually? I highly doubt that it's going to give me anything. But there's no doubt in my mind, not just the CIA, but I'm sure there's other intelligence agencies that receive hard currency, especially the military. I bet the military receives a lot of hard currency directly from the Treasury. But yeah, of course, as the CIA doesn't receive currency directly from the Treasury. Maybe not directly from the Treasury, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this money didn't have origins from a bank, that it was probably handed to them from some federal agency, from some federal representative, some no-name operative who got the money, which is probably uncirculated cash. I'd be curious to know what did the condition of the cash look like? Did it look like it was completely uncirculated, like it was just freshly printed off the machine and then wrapped with the bands? And I would be curious to know that. That would be one of the questions I would ask her. Like, does it look like money that had been circulated before? Because if you look at a stack of cash that's never been circulated versus a stack of cash that had, they look distinctively different. Because some bills, they've got creases in them. You could tell that some cash is worn. You could tell it's been passed around. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if all this cash that they had sent through the airports were just absolutely, completely uncirculated. All right, so anyway, let's move on to Steve Scalise. Must-watch hearings. American taxpayers were defrauded billions in Minnesota. GOP oversight is bringing in Minnesota officials starting next week to the American people answers on the widespread fraud Tim Walz and Keith Ellison allowed to thrive for years. And this is from the Oversight Committee. We're bringing in Tim Walz to answer for the massive fraud in Minnesota. 2 hearings. Answers, accountability, January 7th, Minnesota State Representatives, and February 10th, we'll have Tim Walz and AG Keith Ellison. We will expose failures and identify solutions so we can legislate so this does not happen again. And when that hearing happens, I'd be more curious to hear the questions that's going to be posed from the Democrats more so than from the Republicans. We could probably already get a rough idea as to the questions the Republicans are going to be asking them. But the Democrats, what are they going to be asking them in terms of downplaying the situation that's going on? Because they're going to lob very softball questions at them, and they absolutely shouldn't at all. I mean, look, Democrat officials, at least the ones who are supposedly on the up and up, they should be just as pissed off as anybody else, because this is American taxpayer money that's being funneled out of the country and into terrorist organizations, for crying out loud. So this is going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. Also would be fairly interesting to see if Governor Tim Walz and Keith Ellison even show up. It wouldn't surprise me if they did what like Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton keep doing, keep stonewalling the committee, keep coming up with excuses. Oh no, another one of our friends just died, so we can't make this one, so let's push it back another month. I mean, that's what Bill and Hillary Clinton have been doing. They've been subpoenaed to appear before Congress. What was that, like back in September? They've been putting it off since September, and they still haven't appeared before Congress. I believe that it's going to be a behind closed doors setting. I think it's like a classified hearing or some shit like that. I don't think it's going to be something that the public is going to be privy to seeing. Although this hearing with Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, I believe, will be televised. So that's going to be fireworks, to say the least. U.S. Southern Command 22 hours ago. So we're going to pivot away from the Somali fraud and we're going to move on. On December the 30th, at the direction of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Joint Task Force Southern Spear conducted kinetic strikes against 3 narco-trafficking vessels traveling as a convoy. These vessels were operated by designated terrorist organizations in international waters. Intelligence confirmed the vessels were transiting along known narco-trafficking routes and had transferred narcotics between the 3 vessels prior to the strikes. 3 narco-terrorists aboard the first vessel were killed in the first engagement. The remaining narco-terrorists abandoned the other two vessels jumping overboard and distancing themselves before follow-on engagements sank their respective vessels. Following the engagements, U.S. Southcom immediately notified the U.S. Coast Guard to activate the search and rescue system. So it sounds like the military did not engage these people, in a direct way. Sounds like they called the Coast Guard, and I'm assuming that it was the Coast Guard that recovered those traffickers that jumped into the water. So anyway, we got a 45-second video. As usual, probably going to be no sound. They got all three of them traveling. This is the first one that blows up. Boom! That's the way she goes. Another vessel sinking to the bottom of the ocean. So this one looks like one of the ones that they must have jumped from. Because, yeah, the other two vessels, the narco traffickers, jumped out and swam away before it blew up. I'd be curious to know where they are. I mean, if the Coast Guard apprehended them, where do they take them? What do they plan on doing with them? Because that is a question that even the military has. Because this isn't an active war that's going on. I mean, yes, the war on drugs, of course, that's something that's been going on for decades. Although, I believe the military had questions about that. For any of these drug traffickers, if we apprehend them, what do we do with them? And so I don't know if they're placed into the custody of the federal government. Are they transferred to a federal holding facility? I'm not sure. They don't talk about it, so we don't know where they're taking these people or what they're doing with them. I doubt that they're probably just going to simply send them back to Venezuela, but maybe they're doing that. Maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're just dropping them back off in Venezuela. I mean, strapping a parachute on them and just kicking them out of the freaking plane. All right, so Treasury Department from yesterday. Today, Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control took sanctions action against companies and vessels associated with the shadow fleet serving Venezuela, which continues to provide financial resources that fuel Maduro's illegitimate narco-terrorist regime. Today's action further signals that those involved in the Venezuelan oil trade continue to face significant sanctions risks. So the shadow fleet, I don't know why they want to keep us in the dark. I mean, of course they know who exactly these entities are. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be able to sanction them without knowing who the hell they're sanctioning. So apparently we're not supposed to know that information, I guess. Okay, so U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement saving American lives doesn't just stop at detaining and deporting criminal illegal aliens. Every day, our ICE officers and agents go above and beyond protecting communities, rescuing victims, and upholding the safety and security of our nation. And it's going to be at Daily Wire Plus, and I will give that a link. And this image showing Daily Wire Plus exclusive ICE's most heroic moments of 2025. And that's going to be found right here at Daily Wire Plus. And okay, so of course it's going to be paywalled. That doesn't surprise me at all, but at least I can get the first couple paragraphs read. Despite facing a massive surge in attacks and smears, federal immigration agents were busy making heroic rescues that saved lives in 2025. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers faced a 1,347% surge in assaults and an 8,000% increase in death threats this year as left-wing activists and Democratic politicians attacked them for their role in carrying out President Donald Trump's mass deportation effort. ICE officers employed their training in 2025 to not only make arrests, but also to provide aid as first responders when lives were on the line this year. We get the same training as everyone else, and so on and so forth. With this being on Daily Wire Plus, I don't expect this to work, but I will at least try. I think for Daily Wire, I believe if you open it up in a private window, it'll let you read the article, but Daily Wire Plus might be different, but maybe not. Yeah, okay, so here we go. 7 free articles remaining. Look at that. Looks like we can read this after all. It's just this annoying bar is just going to be stuck down here at the bottom, but that's all right. All right, so let's see. ICE officers employed their training in 2025 to not only make arrests, but also to provide aid as first responders when lives were on the line this year. Quote, we get the same training as everyone else to include CPR and active shooter training, an agency source told the Daily Wire. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons told the Daily Wire that it's part of a broader responsibility agents have to serve their communities. Every day, enforcement and removal operations officers show up knowing the risks they face, and they choose to serve anyway, Lyons said in a statement shared with the Daily Wire. Courage is measured by actions, not words, and throughout the year, officers across the agency demonstrated professionalism, restraint, and courage in moments that demanded all three, Lyons said. Yeah, and if you've been following my show over the last few months, then you'll definitely agree with that statement, because with all of these activists, all the protesters, the rioters, all these assholes that show up to these public apprehensions where they're doing ICE raids, or even at the holding facility like the one in Chicago, where the ICE agents are driving those illegals that they apprehended out in the city somewhere. They drive into the facility and they're met with tons of these rioters and protesters that are blocking the street. They're obstructing. They're throwing objects at them, which is assaulting federal agents. And that happens day after day after day. So for them to exercise that much just personal restraint and also patience, it's unreal, man. Like I'm just surprised that they're not losing their shit like much more easily. So anyway, these are the top 5 stories of ICE's heroism in 2025 that the agency shared with the Daily Wire. ICE officers save victim from a burning car. ICE officers from Denver's elite special response team who were driving to an agency facility in Illinois in September spotted a near deadly collision involving a semi-truck and 3 other cars. They quickly responded to save one of the victims, who they found unconscious, bloodied, and trapped in his burning vehicle. The officers broke the car's window and pulled the man to safety before his car became fully engulfed by the blaze. Another one, ICE officer aids shooting victim in Philadelphia. An ICE deportation officer was out on a raid in Philly in October when he heard multiple gunshots and spotted 3 kids fleeing. The officer spotted the victim, who was shot in his left thigh, and assisted in applying a tourniquet. ICE officer in Dallas rescues a driver of overturned truck. When ICE officers in Dallas observed a pickup truck lose a tire, a rollover 7 times, and it landed upside down on April 26th, they jumped into action. The officers, alongside 2 bystanders, successfully pried open the truck to save the driver. Wow, man. Absolutely crazy. That's why you got to make sure that your tires are in good working order. If you have tires that are bald, you got to get your tires changed, especially if they're the front tires. Isn't it the front tires that are, yeah, they are. They're a lot more dangerous if they blow out, because that could happen to you. You could get a blowout while you're traveling on the highway at 70 miles an hour, and you're going to find yourself flipping over 7 times. All right, so anyway, ICE officers rescue man in vehicle. ICE officers in Philly rescued a driver who veered off the road before striking a tree on July 11th. They also extinguished an engine fire while waiting for emergency responders to respond. An off-duty ICE officer administers life-saving aid to a wounded man. An off-duty ICE officer in Nuevo, California, helped a man who suffered a neck wound while instructing his son to call 911 in October. The officer used his own first aid kit and training to control the bleeding and stabilize the man before emergency responders arrived. So there you have it, and that'll be linked below if you want to check that out as well. And we will roll on to the next topic. From Karoline Leavitt, Trump DOJ sues state giving illegal immigrants massive in-state tuition breaks. This would be enough to boil anyone's blood. And let's see, Daily Caller News Foundation. The Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit accusing Virginia of unlawfully granting illegal aliens in-state resident discounts on college tuition. The state's education code classifies illegal immigrants as Virginia residents. Fancy that. Qualifying them for reduced in-state tuition costs, the lawsuit claims, which is absolutely crazy, because if you're a natural-born American citizen, and let's say you live in Kentucky and you want to go to a university in Virginia, so they accept you, you go and you attend a university inside Virginia, you're going to pay out-of-state tuition, which is like what, double? Costs like twice as much as in-state tuition costs. So a natural-born American citizen has to pay double the amount of tuition to attend a university in Virginia, but someone who is illegally in the country, not even an American citizen at all, and even worse, is an illegal immigrant residing in America, they qualify for in-state tuition. It's fucking insane. This policy, therefore, allows illegal immigrants to access benefits not available to most other Americans, making it not only wrong, but illegal. The DOJ had stated, federal law prohibits states from providing aliens who are not lawfully present in the U.S. with post-secondary education benefit that is denied to U.S. citizens, the court documents read. There are no exceptions. Virginia violates it nonetheless. This court should put an end to this and permanently enjoin the enforcement of provisions of the Virginia Education Code that directly conflict with federal immigration law. The classification means illegal immigrants are able to pay nearly $40,000 less than Americans who reside in another state. In the 2025-26 school year, the University of Virginia charged in-state students $23,897 in undergraduate tuition, while out-of-state students paid $62,923, according to U.S. News and World Report. What an unbelievable waste of money. This is absolutely absurd, especially undergraduate. I mean, look, the tips, the tricks, they're out there. They're nothing new. Like if you've got prerequisite programs like algebra and just the basics, English and all that nonsense that you have to take as part of a 4-year degree, you can take a lot of that at the community college level and just transfer the credits over. And community college, a lot of them, if not most of them, if you qualify for the Pell Grant, the Pell Grant covers the tuition of your local community college 100%. It's basically like a free ride going to a community college. It's not going to cover your room and board and all that. I mean, if you're going to a local college, just keep living with your parents. I mean, like, what parents would not allow their kids to still live with them if they're going to school full time? At least getting those prerequisites out of the way. But all right, anyway, federal immigration law asserts that an alien who is not lawfully present in the United States shall not be eligible on the basis of residence within a state for any post-secondary education benefit unless a citizen or national of the United States is eligible for such a benefit, without regard to whether the citizen or national is such a resident, as cited in the lawsuit. The Trump administration has sued several states already over similar laws giving benefits to illegal immigrants over American citizens. In June, Texas even teamed up with the DOJ to defeat its own law allowing illegal immigrants to receive in-state tuition costs in the red state. In February, President Trump signed an executive order calling on agencies to ensure no taxpayer-funded benefits go to unqualified aliens. And that just absolutely blows my mind that any president would have to sign an executive order making that the case. Anyone who's illegally in the country, they're still eligible for government benefits regardless, is absolutely insane. The order included a mention of preventing states from using taxpayer funds for subsidizing illegal immigrants and attempting to hinder deportation efforts. The federal government in July ended a Clinton-era rule that allowed illegal immigrants to access taxpayer funds for technical and career schools, the Daily Caller News Foundation reported exclusively. From the Clinton era, from the 90s. Again, it wasn't just the Biden administration that put all this bullshit into place that allows illegals to get put on welfare, food stamps, rent assistance, and all that nonsense. It even goes back to the 1990s that immigrants, even illegal immigrants, not just immigrants, but illegal immigrants, can get taxpayer funds for career schools. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I don't even think that legal immigrants or green card holders or anybody that's here on a visa, I don't think that they should have any access to any taxpayer funds in any way, shape, or form. Not a red cent, nothing. Because if they want to come to the U.S., whether if it's for school or for work or what have you, they got to pay their own way. All right, so from the GOP, fact check true. From Donald J. Trump's True Social, there is more fraud in California than there is in Minnesota, if that is even possible. When you add in election fraud, then they are tied for first. 2 crooked governors, 2 crooked states. Yeah, just the high-speed rail project alone in California is just absolutely mind-boggling. That they're estimating that it's going to cost $135 billion to complete the high-speed rail system that's supposed to be running from L.A. to, Bakersfield, and then from Bakersfield to San Francisco. I think there's like 2 rail systems that they're hoping to complete, high-speed rail. $135 billion. I did the math the other day on my Swamp episode. I think it was on Monday, and it would cost if the tickets cost $1,000 to get on that high-speed rail system, it would require over 100 million tickets to be sold for it to even pay for itself. And that doesn't even include ongoing maintenance and just ongoing improvements to the tracks and the employment, like this enormous staff that would have to go into maintaining this high-speed rail infrastructure. Plus, I also checked out the numbers. there's about 120,000 miles of rail across the United States from coast to coast. And if you adjust it for inflation, it's about $220 billion. That's about how much money it would take to build the entire rail system all across America. And that is adjusted for inflation. That's the estimated amount. Of course, it's a conservative number, but $220 billion. That's the cost it would take to build over 100,000 miles of rail across the country. But yet, in California, it's going to cost $135 billion just to build, 500 miles? Yeah, and that's not corrupt. That's not fraudulent. Yeah, okay. All right, Libs of TikTok. Breaking. 2 men were arrested for the fatal hit and run of a 14-year-old Marcus Anderson in Savannah, Georgia, after allegedly crashing into him while he was riding a bike, and then they drove off. They now both have ICE holds. Democrats want to give them taxpayer-funded health care and SNAP benefits. Fancy that. So this is from Chatham County Police Department. 2 have been arrested in connection with fatal hit and run. The Chatham County Police Department has arrested 2 men in connection with a fatal hit and run that took the life of a 14-year-old male last night. Late this afternoon, Chatham County Police Department detectives arrested 32-year-old Castro Miguel Reyes and 29-year-old Olvin Antonio Ramos. Both are charged with tampering with evidence, which is a felony, and obstruction, which is a misdemeanor. Both have been booked into the Chatham County Detention Center. Chatham County Police Department detectives have also recovered the vehicle that fled the scene after the teen who was riding an electric bike was struck and killed in the area of Glade and Ferguson around 7 p.m. on the 28th of December. The vehicle is being processed for additional evidence. This remains a very active and ongoing investigation. It will take some time to process all of the evidence needed. Updates will be provided as they become available. The Chatham County Police Department is the lead investigative agency in this case, and any information released by another agency may or may not be accurate at this time. Very horrific, very unnecessary. I would assume that the family of this poor kid that was killed by these illegal immigrants are going to be very outspoken against illegal immigration if they haven't already been. I know there's a lot of people already. Of course, the mainstream news doesn't want us to think that or believe that, but there's a lot of people who don't like illegal immigration at all. I mean, one of the polls that was conducted, technically last year now that we're in 2026, but there was a poll that was conducted in 2025 that showed 70% or 76% of Americans are in favor of mass deportations. All right, so moving on to Eric Doherty. Breaking. The West African countries of Mali and Burkina Faso just banned U.S. citizens from traveling there to get back at President Trump. Oh no, whatever will we do? They got Trump good. Now I have to cancel my vacation to Mali. I don't think we're going to miss it all.
Mali and Burkina Faso have said they're imposing a travel ban on U.S. citizens.
Oh no, whatever will we do?
That's after an equivalent measure announced by the Trump administration. On December 16th, the White House added the 2 junta-led countries and 5 other nations to a list of those subject to a full travel ban from January 1st. It applies to countries with what Washington calls severe deficiencies in screening, vetting, and information sharing. The White House said these gaps pose national security and public safety threats. Mali said Washington's decision had been taken without prior consultation, adding that the stated rationale was not justified by actual developments on the ground.
Well, all right. I mean, to be honest, and it's kind of embarrassing to admit this, but I couldn't find both of those countries on a map if you gave me just a couple seconds. 10 seconds, I could find it. Of course, it's West Africa. So, like West Africa, you can find that instantaneously. But yeah, like just now looking in my mind's eye at the African continent, I couldn't point exactly to where it is. Maybe near Sierra Leone. I don't know. I know where Sierra Leone is. And, Nigeria and Liberia. I know where a lot of those countries are. But yeah, to be honest, I mean, Burkina Faso, I'm not even familiar with that country. I've heard of Mali. But all right. So anyway, I don't think that the American people are going to be exactly all that heartbroken over their move to do so. I mean, how many American citizens travel there annually? That might be something for Grok to figure out. I bet we could get the answer to that. All right, let's see what it's going to return. How many Americans travel to Mali annually and to Burkina Faso? Very few Americans travel to Mali or Burkina Faso annually, likely fewer than 1,000 to each, possibly only a few hundred people, mainly for business, aid work, or diplomacy rather than tourism. Okay, so they're only shooting themselves in the foot over that, because now they're cutting off businessmen, which would bring money to the region, as well as aid. So getting food aid, material aid, medical aid, like those crates of free goods, quote unquote free, at least free for them. So they're really only cutting themselves off by making that, by not allowing Americans to travel to those countries. Okay, so anyway, Andy, no. In 2025, Antifa highlight. For the first time in history, the U.S. declared foreign violent Antifa groups based in Europe as official terrorist organizations, making it illegal to join or provide material support. Leftists defended the groups, even though the groups are involved in shootings and attempted murders and bombings, which is absolutely true. Making it an official terrorist organization, I don't think they went far enough with that. Andy No also had pointed that out, as well as other journalists and experts on the matter. They said that the Trump administration should be designating Antifa as an international terrorist organization, because that would free up more tools and more abilities and more jurisdiction or what have you. It would give the federal government more resources to combat Antifa if they were designated as an international organization. I think that even the Antifa groups based in Portland, based inside the United States, they should be labeled as international too, because they communicate with other Antifa cells across the Atlantic Ocean in Europe. And plus, Antifa itself got its start in Germany. So the whole Antifa, the entire thing, the whole umbrella, no pun intended, should have been designated as an international terrorist organization. All right, so this is going to come from the Post Millennial, and I'm assuming Andy No probably wrote this article himself. All right. The Post Millennial, Andy No, the U.S. just declared war on Antifa's international arms. Here's what you need to know. From German hammer-beating mobs to Greek bombings and shootings, how 4 violent Antifa networks landed on the U.S.'s foreign terrorist organization list. Okay, well, I mean, his tweet didn't say foreign terrorist organization. Official terrorist organizations. Okay, regardless, there is a difference between a terrorist organization and an international terrorist organization. So anyway, on Thursday, the U.S. State Department announced that 4 international Antifa groups, all primarily based in Europe, have been officially designated as foreign terrorist organizations. It marks the first time in U.S. history that the government has applied this powerful legal designation to any Antifa-aligned network. Quote, today, building on President Trump's historic commitment to uproot Antifa's campaign of political violence, the Department of State has designated 4 Antifa groups as foreign terrorist organizations and specially designated global terrorists, Secretary Marco Rubio wrote on X. The United States will continue using all available tools to protect our nation from these anti-American, anti-capitalist, and anti-Christian terrorist groups. What does FTO really mean? Well, the FTO label is not symbolic. It is a legal tool under U.S. law. It enables sanctions against individuals associated with the groups, as well as freezing their assets, banning travel, and issuing criminal penalties for membership or providing material support. In short, it is now a federal crime to belong to or assist the 4 violent Antifa anarchist groups. And that is where it's going to get very interesting when the federal government starts digging into the financial paper trail to see which nonprofits or NGOs, activist organizations, the ones who have quote unquote legitimate roots, they're going to be looking into the financials with money that has been funneled into Antifa over the years, and where's it going to be coming from? So a lot of these organizations that are supposed to be on the up and up, the NGOs and so on and so forth, they're probably going to be criminally charged because it is a federal crime to assist these Antifa anarchist groups. By contrast, domestic terrorism designations in the U.S. under executive orders are largely symbolic. They instruct agencies like the FBI and DOJ to treat Antifa-linked violence as terrorism, but membership itself remains legal inside the U.S. due to First Amendment protections of association. Last month, when I testified before the president and his cabinet at the White House roundtable on Antifa, I recommended using FTO designations against Antifa's international arms. The State Department has now started doing that. Amen. Very, very good. And 9 years of reporting on Antifa, near fatal attacks, driven from my country. On October 8th, I spoke at the White House to the president and his cabinet. We have no more time to lose. Yeah, Andy Ngo, he is the guy to go to if you have any curiosity as to how Antifa functions, what Antifa is, where they're operating. He knows just about everything there is to know about the inner workings of Antifa. He's been reporting on them for years. He's even written books on Antifa. I believe he's a bestseller. I'm pretty sure he is. So yeah, he's done a ton of on-the-ground reporting. And yes, there were instances where he had the absolute shit kicked out of him, and he was hospitalized. I remember seeing pictures of that. I think that was maybe a year or two ago. I don't think it was that long ago when that happened to him. So let's hear this from Andy Ngo.
At least 3 of these courageous journalists have personally been victims of Antifa attacks. Andy Ngo
would be over here on the right, just off camera.
By Antifa thugs for his work in and Andy is a very serious person too, I have to tell you. I've been watching him for
awesome. They invited
a long time.
Look, this roundtable, it's got other journalists. It has, like some of these like mainstream media types. And of course, there's, like you saw, EGP and Bondi. I'm sure Kash Patel's there. So there's officials, Trump administration officials that are also there. But for them, like Andy Ngo, with him not being any government official, that is the guy that they needed to invite to this roundtable. So that was, needless to say, that was a good thing to see Andy Ngo here.
That's what I thought. Hello, Andy. I thought that was you.
Hello, Andy.
You're looking better than you do out on those streets, huh? You look much better.
Goes through a lot, man.
Nice to have you. You feel
and I believe he lives in Portland.
Here, I think maybe. Well, not that
which is
safe.
insane.
Them.
At least he used to, I think.
That. But thank you very much. Andy Ngo has been repeatedly beaten by Antifa, and including one assault that left him with a brain.
I believe
hemorrhage.
This is Andy Ngo right here.
Thank you, Mr. President,
that's Andy
and
Ngo.
Members of the cabinet.
Blue suit.
I have a lot of gratitude and a little bit about my background. I'm born in Portland, Oregon, from there.
There you go.
Up, it's always been left-wing, very progressive, and I liked it. It had cafes and artists and those who lived a bohemian lifestyle. And in 2016, I was a graduate student at Portland State studying political science. I was an editor at the student paper there, a very progressive paper, and I was assigned to cover the election night demonstrations. Well, the elections night protests turned to riots, 3 days of violent rioting in Portland, and it was the first time that I saw groups dressed in black with their faces covered. This was 4 years before COVID. Some of them were waving the black flag of anarchism, some the red flag of Marxism.
Black umbrellas.
And within seconds, they would ravage one street to another, to another, to another.
Yep, smashing windows.
The next day,
shooting
I would
off
read
mortars.
the legacy media, which I still read at that time and looked forward to, and I looked up to those journalists, and I was really shocked to see that the narrative was that these, in my view, anti-democratic political violence was legitimate acts of protest because people were concerned about racism or all these other lies. And so for the next 4 years, I just continued going out with my video camera. I thought, look, people can ignore what I write because of spin, but videos can quite speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
And in 2019, it led to me nearly losing my life. I was covering another Antifa protest turned riot. At that point, had been routine in Portland. And then I was ambushed in a mob beating. And I had never been in a fight. I didn't even realize that I was being assaulted until seconds in. And the punches came from everywhere on my head and my face, and I was bleeding out of my eyes and ears. And then they threw all the drinks in my eyes to humiliate me further and to laugh at me. And I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance and CT scan, and I had subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is bleeding in the brain. I nearly died. And after surviving that, the reporting that I saw in liberal media it seemed to suggest that I had deserved it because they branded me far right.
Yeah, that was definitely the framing,
some even went so far.
And he's not far
as to
right.
Suggest that I maybe faked my injuries. A BuzzFeed reporter asked for my medical records, which I did provide, but this felt so, it's like because I didn't die in that attack, there was another round of people who wanted to finish me off. But I continued, and then 2020, Portland was really the epicenter of the longest political violence. Those months of riots, I was on the ground, undercover, and there was an assassination there. There was a supporter of Donald Trump named Aaron Danielson who was shot dead by a self-described Antifa member who then fled out of state and died in a shootout with US Marshals. In 2021, I returned undercover, naively thinking that enough time had passed, and was chased through the streets of downtown and beaten, nearly choked out. The person who was trying to choke me out held me so tightly that I had the blood, the vessels in my eyes burst. So one of the symptoms were my eyes were completely red after that, and I was hospitalized. So thank you so much for acknowledging Antifa and for directing your administration to treat them as domestic terrorists. It's going to be really challenging because how they organize is that they are decentralized, autonomous, and they operate on deception. And we're still to this day told that they don't exist, that it's a figment of our imagination.
Oh, yeah. Joe Biden, Antifa's just an idea.
Look at federal conspiracy charges. The state of California and San Diego County last year broke up an Antifa cell in San Diego. And I think maybe perhaps the State Department should designate Antifa, its international arm, as a foreign terrorist organization.
100%.
So
and I believe
thank you
they
so
did.
much for this invitation, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Andy. Great. That's a rough time you had, huh? So the chokeout was almost the end, you felt?
Yeah, that was my only near-death experience in my life, and I'm quite shaken when I think about it now. It really feels unbelievable to me that on the streets of America that this type of violence against citizens could become so routine and accepted and cheered on by people.
Yeah, in the city where he was born.
In the immediate aftermath of
Portland.
Mr. Kirk's assassination, we saw again that type of depravity play out on quite large swaths of the left. So there's a deep sickness that's in this country right now, and it pains me a lot to acknowledge it.
Yeah, the amazing thing is you look at Portland, and you see fires all over the place. You see fights and, I mean, just violence. It's just so crazy. And then you talk to the governor, and she acts like everything is totally normal.
Yeah,
There's nothing
fine.
wrong. It's almost like, are you waking up from a dream or something?
Yeah, it's just like that meme of that dog sitting in that kitchen that's completely engulfed in flames. Everything's fine. It's all fine. I mean, that's a perspective from the mayor of Portland. And the mayor of Portland, who was it, Tom Wheeler? I think it was like Mayor Wheeler during the COVID era. Same thing. He would go out there and he'd make a statement in the middle of all these riots, and they started throwing projectiles at him. Like, they don't care about any elected official. They just want to burn the entire system down. So, yeah, so it was in 2021, I believe he said, when he was assaulted the second time. I thought it was more recently than that. So, and he's not a right-winger. I mean, dude's from Portland. And before Trump won in 2016, he said he was working for a far-left publication. And I'm sure that his political views are still probably left-leaning. I'm sure he believes in entitlement programs and socialism to some degree. I mean, I don't know his politics in and out or anything like that, but I know that he's been reporting pretty heavily on Antifa for better part of a decade at this point. All right, so we're going to move on to the FBI. In case you missed it, from FBI Los Angeles, this month, Mexican authorities executed multiple search warrants and seized a large number of motorcycles with an estimated value of approximately 40 million USD that are believed to be owned by FBI 10 most wanted fugitive Ryan James Wedding. Wedding is wanted for allegedly running and participating in a transnational drug trafficking operation. I believe cocaine is his drug of choice, and for his alleged involvement in orchestrating multiple murders in furtherance of drug crimes. The U.S. is offering a reward of up to $15 million for information leading to his arrest and or conviction. And you can learn more at fbi.gov/wanted. And where is he? James Wedding. I know he's on here. Well, he's not on this list. You know what? Maybe right here. 10 most wanted fugitives. Yeah, here he is right here. Number 2, Ryan James Wedding. This is the guy, isn't he? I thought he may have been like a Canadian or something, or like he was originally from Canada. Maybe I got that wrong. Might be somebody else. No, I don't want to save that. Let's see. Oh, here we go. View poster. No. Why is it trying to get me to save it? I don't want to save that. All right, well, let's see. I'm trying to see where his origin. All right, dates of birth, September 14th, 1981, 240 pounds. He speaks Spanish and English. Yeah, nationality, Canadian. He is a Canadian national. I thought he was from Canada originally. So, yeah, armed and dangerous, use caution, so on and so forth. And let's get back to where this was. So these are some of the images of these motorcycles. All of these belong to this asshole. Look at all this shit. $40 million worth of motorcycles. Like that, to me, that doesn't look like $40 million worth. This must be just like a small fraction of the total amount of motorcycles that they confiscated. But I don't know, maybe there's some collectible pieces in here. Maybe there's some that may have belonged to like famous racing motorcyclists. I don't know. But yeah, so these are just a few samples of the huge number of motorcycles that they had confiscated. I believe it said Mexican authorities were the ones that were most closely involved with the seizure of these motorcycles. And yeah, man, absolutely wild. They still haven't found them. They've been putting out flyers. The FBI has been putting out statements trying to capture this guy, Ryan James Wedding, for pretty much all of 2025. Since I started the swamp back in August, I've been seeing posts from the FBI here and there talking about Ryan James Wedding on the top 10 FBI's most wanted list, man. $15 million if you happen to know where he is. Wouldn't have to ever want for anything for the rest of your life, man. I mean, as long as you live somewhat modestly. All right, so the FBI case update from FBI Charlotte, North Carolina. Truck driver charged federally after a bank robbery and shootout with arresting officers. According to the complaint, on December 26th, Willie Edward McGee Jr. entered a bank and demanded money. The teller gave McGee cash, and surveillance footage depicted McGee leaving the scene in a semi-truck. Later that day, Rocky Mount police located and were surveilling the truck when McGee exited armed with a rifle and began firing at the officers. Learn more details about the investigation by the FBI and the partners at justice.gov/USAO, so on. And that is an image of him. I don't know what he's doing with that. I don't know if he's like pretending like it's a bomb or something. Anyway, it is inexcusable for anyone to put the lives of the men and women in blue at risk. They selflessly protect our communities every day, so the rest of us are safe. FBI Charlotte commends the Rocky Mount Police Department for taking immediate action to make an arrest in this case. We also thank our partners at the U.S. Attorney's Office, Eastern District of North Carolina, for quickly bringing federal charges. Special Agent in Charge James C. Barnacle Jr., FBI Charlotte Field Office. And we've got this. Rocky Mount truck driver charged federally after December 26 bank robbery and shootout with arresting officers. United States Magistrate Judge signed a complaint on December 27th charging Willie Edward McGee Jr. with bank robbery and discharging a firearm in furtherance of a crime of violence. Quote, as alleged, this defendant didn't just rob a bank. He threatened innocent civilians with explosives. Dude, that's exactly what he was doing. That was what he was doing. He was like, oh, I got a bomb. I got a bomb underneath my hoodie. See, this is the detonation device. You better give me all your money. And I'd be curious to know how much he got. Like, I've read it in the past. It's something like $7,000 or $8,000. That's the average amount of money that a bank robber makes off with whenever they rob a bank. Even though, like, if a bank robber, if they do their homework, they would typically rob a bank on a Friday because that's payday. That's when banks typically have the most cash on hand. And Tuesday is usually the day where they have the least amount of cash. Now, I know this because I still remember that I did a report back in 10th grade. This was like back in the year 2000 when I wrote a report on bank robberies and how the FBI, how they apprehend or how they investigate bank robbers. So like I still remember some of the statistics from like way back then. I'm sure that the numbers have probably changed. It's probably not $7,000, $8,000 that they typically get away with these days. I'm sure it's a lot more because of inflation and all that nonsense. All right, so innocent civilians with explosives and then opened fire on police officers, said Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. That is not desperation. That is domestic terror. Thanks to the extraordinary courage and professionalism of our law enforcement partners, he is alive, he's in custody, and faces decades in federal prison. Let this serve as a warning. If you bring violence into our communities or target the men and women who protect them, this Department of Justice will meet you with the full weight of the federal government and ensure you are removed from the streets for a very long time. And the article continues, that's his semi-truck, which is probably the most hilarious getaway vehicle that I've ever seen from a bank robber. It's like, dude, you almost cannot make that up. Got away in a semi-truck. And for him to have actually gotten away, it sounds like he got away at least for a short period of time. I'm sure like reading further into the article, they might provide more details with that. I mean, it does say he was armed with a Ruger AR-556 rifle, and he immediately began firing. But yeah, it does say right here, later that day, Rocky Mount police located the semi-truck in a Hobby Lobby parking lot. So he did get away from the bank. And I don't know how far away from the bank he was. Hobby Lobby parking lot probably wasn't that far away. Yeah, here you go. Look at this. The teller gave McGee $3,234 in cash. That's all he got. He barely got half of the average amount of money that a bank robber gets away with. Let's see. So December 26th, what day of the week was that again? December 26th. What was it? Thursday? Was that what it was? Or no, Friday. Oh, okay. So yeah, he did pick Friday. That is the day that a bank robber would be most likely to make away with the most amount of cash. Because again, a payday Friday. So, all right. So we'll go ahead and roll on to the next post. Oh, nope. One more. All right, here we go. U.S. attorneys from yesterday. As 2025 comes to a close, we want to take a moment to thank our U.S. Attorney's Office family, our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners, and all of the frontline heroes for all they have done to keep our community safe. We wish you all a happy new year. Happy 2026. And DEA headquarters, 2025 DEA year in review. With 1 day left in the year, let's take a look at some of DEA's efforts, initiatives, and strategic priorities from this year that reflect a renewed focus on enforcement, partnership, and public safety to meet the evolving threats of the global drug crisis. All right, well, that was really quick. Definitely would have to pause the video to read those individually. It's not like kind of like a top 10, so to speak. All right, and this is from the U.S. Mint. In case you missed it, the 2026 circulating coin designs were unveiled for America's semi-quincentennial. Today's spotlight is the U.S. Constitution Quarter, the 4 of 5 new quarter designs. Learn more on our website. And we've got the video clip here. All right, $quarter. Let's see, trailblazing champion, Althea Gibson. So that's one of them. Let's see. Of course, that's. There we go. U.S. Constitution, We the People, $quarter, Liberty. That's the second one. I think there's 4 of them, right? That they said. 1 in a series of 5. I believe the description said they're going to be showing 4 out of 5. We the People. U.S. Constitution Quarter. Oh, that's it? Oh, man, I thought they were going to show us 4 of them. All right, well, I guess we got 2 of them at least. But anyway, the link that they provided, I would imagine that it probably shows more. And I didn't even see where it popped up. Yeah, here we go. All right. No, I'm not a robot. I am a human. Verification successful. No, thank you. At least not right now. Semi-quincentennial coins and medals. To celebrate the nation's semi-quincentennial, or semi-Q, the United States Mint is proud to unveil 1-year-only changes to well-known American coinage, such as the circulating dime and quarter, as well as the collectible $half. The Mint will also release special numismatic coins and medals in 2026, featuring unique designs and enhancements for core products and annual releases. Explore this page to purchase semi-quincentennial products, sign up for updates, so on and so forth. So the circulating coins, here we go. The emerging Liberty dime. So that's going to be coming out. And, oh man, that is expensive. For what? For one of them? Oh, a set? I guess you're getting a set of them. Yeah, I don't get, I mean, I get the whole coin collection thing. I understand it, especially when it's not, especially when it's not been circulated. Yeah, it's just not for me. Emerging Liberty dime, the Mayflower Compact Quarter. So they're showing both sides of each of those. Revolutionary War Quarter. So that's more or less what the one from 1976, the Bicentennial Quarter, looks a bit like that. The Declaration of Independence Quarter, U.S. Constitution Quarter, the Gettysburg Address Quarter. So those are going to be the special semi-quincentennial editions. And, of course, they all say 1776 to 2026. And yeah, very interesting. Mayflower Compact, Emerging Liberty. So there you go. U.S. Mint. You got the semi-quincentennial coinage. And this comes from the National Mall NPS. Beginning tonight through January 5th, a narrative projection will illuminate the Washington Monument every hour on the hour from 7 p.m. until 11:30 p.m. It is the opening of a year-long series of events celebrating 250 years of American independence. You can learn more right there. Let me scooch that over. The Illumination of America, Washington Monument Lighting and New Year's Eve Show. And this is not live. Yeah, this is pre-recorded, I'm assuming probably from last night. So let's see if we can get a look at it. Oh, so they're even like displaying other images on it.
By the hand of providence and the strength of determined men and women, the United States of America was
Declaration
born.
of Independence. Okay.
And with
Very
her,
interesting.
words that echo throughout eternity.
All right, let's see what else we got here.
With our genius and industry,
Empire State Building, right?
we built the wonders of the modern world.
It's on the Washington Monument.
And our greatest works
Monument to the establishment
are yet to come.
All right, what else we got? Landed on the moon. Got the moon landing. Artemis 2 mission is happening.
America
here
brought
in just a couple of
mankind
months.
into the space age as we took our place
Which
among
I just
the
realized
stars.
that was a little loud. My apologies.
A new revolution began here at home.
Man, this goes on for like 5 hours, dude. Okay, so this is that's like quote unquote live whenever they were showing it. So 250. Does it stay lit like that the whole time? I thought it didn't. I thought they said it was only on the hour. That's really cool. They got NASA rocket. To be honest with you, I'm surprised they don't do this just every day. I mean, they illuminate enough stuff around. You'd think they would have this, but supposedly this is only supposed to go until January the 5th, where they show all of this footage that they're displaying on the Washington Monument. So yeah, there goes the Empire State Building again. Looks like it might just be maybe just the same images that they would probably just show hour over hour. American flag. So very cool. And I'll link that. I'll link this video, or not the video, but I'll link this website below if you want to take a look at that. It's going to be found on YouTube. The Illumination of America, Washington Monument Lighting and New Year's Eve Show. And they've got the dates and the times. Let's see, from December 31st up until January the 5th. And they did fireworks out there. Well, that's cool. I'm sure that's going to easily be found if you want to check out the fireworks that happened out there last night. All right, so Secretary Doug Burgum, America's 250th birthday kicks off on New Year's Eve. Come join our Patriots starting tomorrow night at the Washington Monument to celebrate 250 freedom. Well, it's already too late for that, but that's all right. Freedom 250 tonight in honor of our nation's 250th year. Freedom 250, the organization President Trump announced to lead our 250th celebration, will transform the Washington Monument into the world's tallest birthday candle. From New Year's Eve through January 5th, a 6-night projection mapping spectacle will illuminate the iconic monument, creating a canvas that tells America's story of discovery, expansion, revolution, independence, and innovation. This illumination is the opening signature moment of a year-long series of 250 Freedom national events celebrating the triumph of the American spirit. If you're in D.C., come to the Washington Monument, December 31st, 7 to 12 a.m., fireworks at midnight, and then January 1st through 5th from 7 p.m. to 11:30. And, oh, they're going to do fireworks again on January 5th. Okay, interesting. Alrighty, so we're going to move on to the White House. The year America leveled up, LFG. And you know what that stands for? Let's fucking go. Let's go.
And with that, the 2025 season has come to an end. Good night.
Just like that. Hell yeah, man. That was a hell of a year. Hell of a busy year. I mean, Trump did probably more in just 2025 than probably the last two Democrat presidents did in their combined, 12 years? All right, rapid response 47 from the president. The United States has set a world record on investments being made into a country, and it is trillions of dollars more than number 2, China. This is singularly because of tariffs and the fact that if you make your product in the U.S., there are no tariffs. Hence, factories and businesses are being built all over the country at a level never seen before. Congrats to the USA on this incredible achievement. President Donald J. Trump, of course. And you know the Democrats had no interest. They had no plans. They had absolutely no initiative, no endeavors, nothing with regard to bringing manufacturing back to the country because they're trying to get us to, what is it, like net zero carbon. Trying to roll out all the wind and all the solar nonsense. That's not going to power industries. That's not going to power manufacturing facilities. All right, so from Scott Turner with Housing and Urban Development, he says, great progress was made in 2025 and even more will be done in 2026. We will continue to bring down costs and increase supply by slashing regulations and ensuring our housing supply for American citizens only. At least let's hope so. All right, so this is from the Department of Housing and Urban Development 2025 in review. On day one, President Trump signed an executive order to lower the cost and expand the supply of housing. Since then, HUD has helped more than 1 million first-time homebuyers achieve the American dream. Okay, as long as they can afford it. I mean, I got kind of an issue with people getting government assistance to buy a house because, you know, if you need the government's help to buy a house, you obviously can't afford one. But whatever, that's just me. All right, RNC research by the numbers. President Trump's record year. And we've got this article. President Trump has delivered a record year of progress and results for the American people. This is from Karoline Leavitt on December 30th. President Trump kept his promise to the American people and sealed the border. This is monthly southwestern border encounters in the thousands. And that's Trump's first term. You know, kind of spiked a little bit. Looks like the beginning of 2020. And then, of course, under Biden, I mean, come on, man, it goes without saying. Looks like a freaking, like ocean of freaking, or a whole, skyline of skyscrapers compared to Trump's first term and certainly his second term. I mean, it's damn near at the bottom for 2025. Hell yeah. So here's some of the highlights. Secured the largest tax cut in American history for working Americans, which it's kind of a loaded statement, in my opinion, because in order to do all these tax cuts that we're experiencing or we're about to start experiencing, they had to add to the national deficit, essentially, because they didn't slash enough of federal government spending in order to provide this level of tax cuts. So, you know, it's kind of a trade-off. But anyway, over 500,000 jobs have been added to the private sector. Nearly 3 million native-born workers gained employment. Federal employment is the lowest since 2014. Inflation is at its lowest since the spring of 2021 at 2.7%. Wages are outpacing inflation. Economic growth outpaced expectations with third quarter growth landing at 4.3%. Secured funding to provide newborns with a $1,000 investment account and inspired an additional $6.35 billion in private investment to those accounts. Merit-based hiring is back and DEI is out. Pending home sales jumped to the highest level since 2023. Gas prices are averaging below $3 a gallon and the lowest since December of 2020. $50 billion has been invested into rural healthcare. And also the Laken Riley Act was signed into law. Nearly 2 million illegals have self-deported. The worst of the worst criminal illegals are off the streets with full transparency. 7 straight months of zero releases at the border. Also, negative net migration achieved for the first time in 50 years. Also, secured funding for the construction of the border wall. Crime has plummeted to levels not seen in decades. Secured the release of over 40 Americans from abroad. My bad, I misspoke on that. Secured the release of 40 Americans from abroad. All living hostages have been released from Hamas. 8 wars have been settled. Destroyed Iran's nuclear threat. Designated more terrorist organizations. The Golden Dome missile defense system is funded to protect the homeland. Ended UN RWA funding, which has reportedly been infiltrated by members of foreign terrorist organizations. We withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement that ripped off our country for years. Also, NATO committed to spending 5% of their GDP toward defense. America's dominance in AI has been kickstarted, and trillions of dollars in investments have been committed to the U.S. 13 million acres have been announced for mining and drilling, expanded access to IVF treatments. U.S. Olympics banned men from competing with women following the EO to protect women's sports. Removed fraud, waste, abuse from taxpayer-funded programs like Medicaid. At least 21 hospitals have ended or restricted child mutilations. Nearly 40% of the food industry is on board to remove harmful additives. 14 major pharmaceutical companies have agreed to sell prescription medicine at the lowest price available and will invest billions in the U.S. market. President Trump promised the American people he would reverse the last 4 years of failed policies, and 1 year into his return to office, he is delivering. The best is yet to come. And I'm going to repost this because there are a lot of links. So if you want to go through any of these points, such as like 7 straight months of zero releases, or if you want to look up like securing the release of over 40 Americans, you can click on it and it'll take you to, I'm assuming it'll take you to the source. Okay, from Rapid Response. Okay, so it might actually link you back to other posts, which, for instance, this is a thread. So you're going to show videos, reuniting with family. And yeah, so, I mean, that's just the 40 hostages that it covers. So each one of these bullet points has links to either other posts or to articles where you can get more information out of that. And we will head to the next thing. Department of State 2025, the year America First foreign policy has delivered. Oh, shit. Here we go.
Voters have elected Donald J. Trump as our president to ensure that our foreign policy is centered on one thing, and that is the advancement of our national interest.
My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. I'm also going to ask all NATO nations to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP.
President Trump has secured
which I believe they have agreed to.
$9 trillion in commitments from foreign investors.
There will be no better place on earth to create jobs, build factories, or grow a company than right here in the good old USA.
My job is to implement the president's foreign policy. We are changing this place. That's the job I have, and that's the job I'm proud to do. I think we've made a lot of progress. We have a lot more work to do.
We're deporting criminals, restoring safety to our most dangerous cities.
These drug
85,000 visas.
Organizations that threaten the United States, you're going to have a problem with President Trump.
My preference will always be for peace and partnership. The entire planet will be more prosperous as a result of what we're doing and going to do.
That will be our mission. We will, as a nation, be able to leave the future generations with a country and a planet safer and better than the one that was left for us.
Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world.
Amen, man. Let's go. And got another 3 years out of us, too. From the White House, thread 2025, January 20th, 2025, President Donald J. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance are sworn into office. Is this going to be a thread, or is this just the single post? Okay, yeah, it does appear to be a thread of sorts. January 24th, 2025, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump visit California and North Carolina disaster areas. I remember that. That was like one of the first things he did as president. He went out to California. He had that roundtable event where the LA mayor, Karen Bass, was there. And I think Governor Newsom was there too, which was, cringeworthy to say the least. February 11th, 2025, President Trump welcomes home Mark Fogel at the White House. And February 16th, President Trump, the Daytona 500. And March 3rd, First Lady Melania Trump speaks at a roundtable event on the Take It Down Act. March 4th, President Trump addresses a joint session of Congress. J.D. Vance back there. And, of course, Speaker Mike Johnson. March 17th, President Trump at the Kennedy Center. And April 21st, President Trump at the White House Easter egg roll. April 26th, President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump attend the funeral mass for Pope Francis. And May 14th, Trump bids farewell to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud as he boards Air Force One at King Khalid International Airport in Riyadh. June 14th, President Trump and First Lady Melania attend the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army Grand Parade and celebration. On July 4th, President Trump signs the One Big Beautiful Bill into law. July 13th, attends 2025 FIFA Club World Cup final. And the President, First Lady attend a state banquet with King Charles III and Queen Camilla at Windsor Castle in Windsor, England. And let's see, President Trump attends the memorial service for Charlie Kirk at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. That was on September 21st. On October 5th, President Trump gestures to the crowd after arriving on stage to deliver remarks in honor of the U.S. Navy's 250th anniversary celebration at the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier at Naval Station Norfolk in Norfolk, Virginia. And October 7th, President Donald Trump meets with freed American Israeli hostage Eden Alexander and others to mark the second anniversary of the Hamas-led terror attacks on Israel, which happened on Tuesday, October 7th, 2025 in the Oval Office. And October 28th, President Trump welcomes Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takehachi to deliver remarks to troops aboard the USS George Washington. And November 25th, President Trump, First Lady Melania pardoned the national Thanksgiving turkeys. December 12th, President Trump, First Lady Melania host a Christmas reception. And it looks like that's all they got. So that actually turned out to be a hell of a thread. I thought it was only going to show like 2 or 3. It actually showed a whole year's worth of images. So there you go, man. Swearing into office, moving all the way across the year, and ending with the Christmas celebration. From the U.S. Department of Labor, President Trump is the president of the American worker. We've delivered historic wins this year, but we've still got a lot of progress to make. Keeping our foot on the gas in 2026. Okay, so that's not going to be a video, but we do have a link to an article from the U.S. Department of Labor. And it says, under President Trump's leadership, U.S. Department of Labor moved quickly to put the American worker first in 2025. Secretary Chavez DeRemer has led the department in efforts to expand career pathways, prepare people for new jobs, protect retirement and health benefits, and ensure a level playing field for U.S. workers and employers. Here are some of the highlights. Making America skilled again. Registered 2,300 new apprenticeship programs nationally and added nearly 300,000 new apprentices. Preparing for the jobs of the future. $86 million in new skills training investments will support AI infrastructure careers. Integrating education and workforce development. Our new agreement with the Department of Education aims to target grant dollars more effectively so students have clearer pathways from school to careers. Lowering healthcare costs. We're moving forward with rulemaking to expand healthcare price transparency and make care more affordable for workers and families. Promoting retirement security. We rescinded prior guidance restricting the use of cryptocurrency in retirement investments and removed a supplemental statement that discouraged fiduciaries from considering alternative assets in 401k plans. Enforcing fair labor practices to protect American workers. Launching nearly 200 investigations into companies suspected of abusing the H-1B visa program as part of Project Firewall, an effort to ensure that employers do not displace U.S. workers with cheaper foreign labor. Supporting U.S. agriculture and protecting food security. Taking steps to cut red tape and have established an Office of Immigration Policy to support America's agricultural employers. Providing compliance assistance for employers. They've rolled out opinion letter and self-audit programs to help employers succeed. And finally, reducing regulatory burdens on businesses. We have rescinded discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion requirements. And again, that's going to be on the Department of Labor's website at dol.gov. American Workers First. And heading to Bureau of Reclamation. As we count down to the new year, here are 10 reclamation fun facts to ring in the new year ahead. Number 10, reclamation power plants generate enough hydropower to serve millions of homes each year. Reclamation facilities help deliver water to irrigate hundreds of thousands of acres of land. Number 8, reclamation projects serve thousands of communities, farms, and tribes. Number 7, reclamation operates and maintains hundreds of dams across the West. And number 6, reclamation partners with hundreds of private, federal, local, and tribal entities to support water and power management across the West. Number 5, reclamation water management services operate 365 days a year to support water users. Number 4, reclamation engineers, scientists, and operators work 24/7 to keep systems running. Number 3, reclamation dams help manage changing water conditions across dozens of major basins, from floods to drought. Number 2, reclamation infrastructure spans across 17 western states. And number 1, hydropower is one of the largest sources of renewable energy in the West. And it's nothing new. They've been doing that for, I'm sure it's been over over a century at this point. Thank you for being part of Reclamation's mission. Wishing everyone a safe and happy new year. The countdown to 2026 already came and went. We're already in 2026 now. And moving to Fox News, Newsom is lying. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said California must revoke roughly 17,000 commercial driver's licenses issued to foreign nationals who do not have legal U.S. status by January the 5th, or risk losing nearly $160 million in federal funding after the state DMV announced a 60-day delay to the deadline. California does not have an extension to keep breaking the law and putting Americans at risk on the roads. Duffy threatens to yank $160 million in federal funding from California over foreign trucker licenses. And we have that article right here on foxbusiness.com. Duffy says California does not have an extension on deadline to cancel foreign nationals' trucker licenses. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy threatened to cut nearly $160 million in federal funding. Let's see. Duffy confident we can take out unlawful drivers. Looks like this is going to be related. Let's take a look at this.
Driver's licenses that were illegally issued to foreign-born truck drivers. Willem Lajeunesse joining us now. How did these illegal migrants get their licenses in the first place?
Well, Stuart, California claims
incompetence,
the Biden
corruption,
administration
Democrats.
gave it permission to let illegal asylum seekers with work permits
Putting
drive
Americans
big
last.
rigs. Well, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said the state never had that authority because federal law doesn't allow undocumented immigrants to drive 18-wheelers, which explains why he ordered California to begin canceling thousands of commercial licenses to illegals and those who don't understand English.
Well, look, if they never had the authority to begin with, there should be no timeline for California. It should be those licenses should be immediately recognized as completely illegal. There shouldn't be any timetable, no timeline. If they don't have the authority to issue licenses to illegal immigrants, 60 days my ass. It should be effective immediately. Any illegal immigrant that has a license is effectively driving without a license.
I feel very confident that if we're able to take out the unlawful, untrained, non-English speaking drivers, we will not have an issue on our roadways.
So the purging of CDL rolls comes as 28-year-old Harjinger Singh appeared today in court in Florida. Singh allegedly killed 3 in Florida in
Allegedly?
August.
Dude was on
When
dash
he made
cam
an
for crying out
illegal
loud. There he
U-turn,
is.
Florida is suing California for
Right
giving
there.
Singh a license
Oh, he allegedly
despite
did.
not speaking English and
I get it,
failing
though.
his driver test 10
That's-
times.
that's
Also under the
legal speak.
microscope, CDL mills that graduate unqualified students who don't understand rules of the road.
I want to make this perfectly clear to the driver training schools. If you are not following the rules and you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, we're going to ensure that we put you out of business.
Good.
So in Los Angeles, we went out to a truck stop. The truckers call it a race to the bottom, with shippers using foreign labor to undercut prevailing rates,
That's exactly
putting
what they're
everyone
doing.
at risk.
There's one thing makes this thing safe. One item. And
The
that's
driver.
the man sitting behind the wheel.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a qualified man sitting right there, the rest doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a rolling bomb,
So the bottom
essentially.
line is that 17,000 in California, Stuart, is just the tip of the iceberg. There are upwards of 200,000 undocumented truckers in 6 states primarily who could lose their license.
Holy shit.
Okay, William, thank you.
200,000 illegal immigrant truck drivers out there on the road. Up to and he said primarily that's in 6 states. Over 200,000. Now imagine yanking every single one of them off the road, which they're working to do. And I'm assuming probably in the coming days or weeks, that's going to absolutely be the case. Imagine the amount of demand for truck drivers that's about to increase. So anybody who was forced out of the industry because they just weren't paying enough per mile, you might be able to get back into that career again, start making a handsome living. So Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy said on Tuesday that the California Department of Motor Vehicles does not have an extension to the deadline for the cancellation of commercial driver's licenses issued to foreign nationals who do not have legal U.S. status, disputing the delay announcement by the department. And they've got roughly 17,000 licenses that were issued to illegal immigrants that are out there driving semi-trucks. And licenses are not going to be afforded a 60-day extension. Gavin Newsom is lying, Duffy wrote on X. The deadline to revoke illegally issued unvetted foreign trucker licenses is still January 5th. So you could try to make up that 60-day bullshit all you want. It ain't going to be 60 days. It's going to be not 2 day, but it's going to be in just a couple of days. Okie dokie. And I also have this. It's probably going to be the same article, I'm assuming. Duffy says California does not have the extension on deadline to cancel foreign nationals' trucker licenses. That's on USDOT rapid response. Let me just double check to make sure. Yeah. So that's going to be the same article. All right. And we're going to head on to the next thing. Bureau of Transportation Statistics. And it says BTS data release. BTS updates national transportation statistics on December 30th. Today, BTS released its monthly update to national transportation statistics, which is a guide to historical national level transportation trends. Each month, NTS updates include the extent, condition, use, and performance of the physical transportation network and infrastructure. Also, safety information, including accidents, crashes, fatalities, and injuries for each transportation mode and for hazardous materials movement. Transportation's impact on the economy, including gross domestic product, employment by industry and occupation, and transportation-related consumer and government expenditures. And finally, transportation's impact on energy use. And you can find all of that information on this article that they, or this website that they linked with the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. I mean, they even cover like U.S. oil and gas pipeline mileage, freight activity in the U.S., transportation accidents, that's where that can be found, energy intensity of transit motor buses, prohibited items intercepted at airport screening checkpoints. So they've got all kinds of stuff on here that you can look into in their data statistics. And head on to the next thing. Of course, that's going to be linked below. U.S. ambassador to NATO. As we head into the new year and negotiations enter a critical phase, the president is the only leader capable of bringing both sides to the table to see if there's a peace deal to be had. Of course, they're speaking about Russia and Ukraine.
The only person that could bring both sides to the table and most importantly keep both sides at the table is President Trump. And so we are going to push through, see if there's a peace deal to be had. But it's pretty clear, as the president said over the weekend, it either is going to get done as part of this process we're in the middle of right now, or it's going to go on much longer. Let's all hope that we can get a peace deal here in the new year.
Yeah, because, the only alternative, if President Trump just throws his hands up and says, well, nope, there's nothing else we can do. I've done everything I can. I'm not going to use any more of my precious time toward this war because nothing's happening, then looks like President Trump probably steps away, and I don't know how many years or how many months it might take, but eventually Ukraine will just become a part of Russia. All right, U.S. Attorney Redding Quinones, federal, state, and local leaders gathered in Miami on December 12th to formally install Jason A. Redding Quinones as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida at his investiture ceremony. In remarks, he reflected on his Miami roots, military and legal service, and reaffirmed his commitment to protecting the community and upholding justice across a wide range of federal priorities. And you've got a few pictures that they shared of his, commemoration? Is that what they called it? His investiture ceremony. So anyway, that happened. And U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM's 2025 year in review, warfighting, partnerships, innovation. Take a look at that. That is U.S. Central Command, by the way. Peace through strength. United States Central Command. Okay, and I got this from Defense News. Officials say the buildup is necessary to deter China and make Japan's military more self-reliant. And let's see, pacifist Japan moving from exclusive self-defense to military buildup. That's pretty big news, man, because they've only been allowed to operate as a defensive military since, of course, World War II when they were defeated. And, the United States and allies didn't really like the idea of Japan building up an offensive military, given what happened in the 1940s. So Japan is barreling forward with efforts to significantly boost its military capabilities to stand up to China's growing threats by doubling annual arms spending. And you know what? There'd be an argument to be made that if Japan never, got involved with the Axis powers during World War II, or even after we defeated Japan after a number of years, perhaps if we were to allow them to build up their offensive military again, which I understand why they didn't for obvious reasons. But I mean, if they had always maintained a large military presence, perhaps China's military may not have grown anywhere near to the size it has, or maybe it would have. I don't know. What do I know? Anyway, the goal comes as Tokyo's main ally. The United States pushes for more military assistance in Asia, and a military hawk and ultra-conservative takes over Japan's leadership. Japan says it is still a peaceful nation, and the buildup is necessary for more self-reliant military that can better deter China. But Beijing and other critics see Japan as deviating from its post-war peace pledge, pointing to Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's statement soon after taking office that any Chinese military action against Taiwan could be grounds for a Japanese military response. Japan's transformation into one of the world's major defense spenders has developed over decades and raises the question of whether the ongoing buildup is a violation of its pacifist constitution. Here's a closer look. Japan's constitution has been hollowed out. After World War II, Japan was not supposed to have a military. During the 1945 to 52 U.S. occupation, American officials wanted to stamp out the militarism that led to Japanese aggression across Asia before and during the war. Under Article 9 of the U.S. drafted 1947 Constitution, Japan renounced the use of force to settle international disputes and the right to maintain land, sea, and air forces for that purpose. The U.S. changed its mind about Japanese militarism when the Korean War started in 1950. Japan became an ally, not a threat, leading to the creation of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces in 1954. Article 9 is now widely seen as the legal basis for Japan to have a sufficient military to defend itself. Japan has since repeatedly stretched the definition of self-defense, allowing overseas dispatches of its troops as part of international peacekeeping operations, though mostly avoiding combat missions. A big change came in 2014 under former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who wanted Japan to have a normal military. Abe newly interpreted Article 9 as legalizing collective defense. The following year, a security law allowed Japan to use force if the United States or other friendly nations come under enemy attack, even if Japan is not being attacked. This was Abe's attempt to have a normal military without formally changing the constitution. Takaichi angered China by giving a hypothetical example of such a situation, a deviation from former leader's strategic ambiguity. So anyway, tensions with China worsen. They go into that, and Japan take on more offensive roles. Fundamental change came in December of 2022 when former Prime Minister Fumio Kishida government adopted a security strategy stating the need for Japan to acquire strike-back capability with long-range missiles, a major break from Japan's self-defense only policy. Japan plans to promote defense industry, and looks like that's all they get into with those details. Again, this is going to be on defensenews.com. And let's head on to the next video from U.S. Navy. Presence, partnership, power. In 2025, your U.S. Navy stood the watch around the globe. From the Red Sea to the southern border, from the Baltics to the Indo-Pacific, we were there. We celebrated epic deployments, honored our 250-year heritage, and invested in the future of our Golden Fleet. See our year in action. All right. Well, that was much shorter than Central Command's. It would have been awesome if it was a bit longer than that, but, whatever. We'll take it. All right. U.S. Space Command from yesterday. As we welcome the new year, we reflect on 2025's achievements. U.S. Spacecom Commander General Stephen Whiting declared 2025 the year of command and control. And thanks to the USS Spacecom's team's dedication, we have advanced C2 capabilities at strategic, operational, and tactical levels. And this is pretty small. Well, it's not going to size up anymore, but nevertheless, I can read it. Year of Command and Control. Participated in a NATO space tabletop exercise with U.S. and allied military representatives, contributing to a joint space coordination concept. Also analyzed orbital environments and evaluated options and impacts for joint operations. The next one, clarified roles and coordination among space, electronic warfare, and cyber operations to support future planning. The next one, assessed special operations forces integration and identified improvement areas. And also defined when and how the U.S. Space Force would activate commercial space support. The next one, redefined command and control roles for space operations under multinational force operation, Olympic Defender. The next one, advanced work to formalize authorities and command relationships for joint space operations. And the last one, identified tactical commander requirements in coordination with mission partners. And again, that's U.S. Space Command. This one's from the U.S. Army, launching fireworks, launching mortars. Watch these soldiers qualify on firing mortars at Bemowo, a Piski training area in Poland. Check this out, Poland.
Fire! 5 rounds, 5 rounds. Fire! 1, 2, take it. Fire! Take it. Fire! Take it. Fire! Hang it. Fire!
Damn, a mortar shakes the entire vehicle, man. A lot of firepower. Jostling those water bottles around. God, I can only imagine how loud that would be. All right. This comes from the Secretary of the Army. Everything we do starts with soldiers. This year, I spent time listening, learning, and pushing real improvements to quality of life. Getting to connect with soldiers around the world has been a highlight of my year, and I can't wait to see what all our warfighters do in 2026.
Soldiers are the heart of the Army. Without you, we are nothing and cease to exist. That's why the Secretary has made it a priority to get out of the building, visit installations, and hear from you directly. Let's jump in. In the past 10 months, we visited soldiers in 25 states and nearly a dozen countries. We've seen the challenges you face, whether it's housing, childcare, or quality of life. We're working hard to fix those issues. We're improving barracks with 3D printing, creating campus-style dining facilities,
and
partnering with the private sector to ensure you and your families have what you need to thrive. Because when we take care of our people, we unlock their full potential and empower them to lead, innovate, and drive the Army forward. Secretary Driscoll is committed to putting soldiers first. You give so much to preserve our nation and our way of life. It's our job to make sure you're ready to fight and win. This will defend.
He speaks very quietly. Anyway, you said Secretary Driscoll, right? Secretary of the Army. Let's see. Yep, Dan Driscoll. Honorable Dan Driscoll, Secretary of the Army. Roll on down to the next one. Drought Center, the U.S. Drought Monitor, 12/31 of 25. For the 50 states and Puerto Rico, the U.S. Drought Monitor shows 35.9% of the area in moderate drought or worse, compared to 34.75% last week. Of course, California, their drought has been completely wiped out, especially after the last week or two, when they had those insane rainstorms that rolled through, where they called it an atmospheric river. There were parts of Southern California that got over a foot of rain. It is insane. And also parts of the Sierras, they got over 8 feet of snow. It's pretty mind-boggling. So yeah, in my state, I live in the state of Florida, and we're about maybe roughly, well, we're getting close to halfway through our dry season. We have a dry season for 8 months out of the year, so it comes as no surprise to me that we're in drought conditions. But yeah, man, it looks like a lot of the country is experiencing some form of a drought. Hopefully next year, next season, next summer, hopefully things get a little bit better. And on to the next. Oh shit, I clicked on the wrong thing. Damn it. I gotta scroll all the way back down again. That's all right. We're near the bottom anyway. There we go. Just like that. All right, Secretary Kennedy, New Year's resolution equals Maha. Let's check out Secretary Kennedy's video.
My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this.
Dr. Oz.
We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
Well, you know, those New Year's resolutions go. The most popular one being getting your exercise going. I mean, that's why Planet Fitness always sponsors the ball drop, or at least they have in recent years. And speaking of the New York City New Year's Eve celebration, Trump superfan says he was the first in line for the NYE celebration.
Yeah, Happy New Year,
Happy New Year.
Yes.
What time did you get here?
I've been here since 2:30 a.m. in the morning.
Good grief.
Yes, number one.
I'll wait for like 20 hours.
No. He just, look. See, what he don't realize, I came with receipts. We're gonna go ahead and come.
I don't know, you look pretty warm to me.
Look at that. Who's that? 2:52 a.m. Receipts, my God.
He took a selfie at 2 a.m. I mean, where the hell do you go to the bathroom? That's always been my number one question. All these people waiting for hours and hours. I mean, you have to hook up like a catheter or some shit? I bet some people probably do. Adult diapers. I mean, for real though, like they don't have portalettes set up in Times Square, do they? Maybe they do. I don't see any. So yeah, anyway, he claims to have been the first one to show up. Diehard Trump supporter, Trump super fan for the New Year's Eve celebration. And then I've got this last one to finish up. Of course, it's NASA. If you couldn't tell, we have feelings about X-59's first flight. After years of design, development, and testing, NASA's X-59 took off to the skies for the first time on October 28th of 2025. Now hear from the team who helped make it happen, including test pilot Niles Larson, as they reflect on the accomplishment. So, by the way, this plane, the reason why it's shaped that way, it's because they're trying to develop a plane that breaks the sound barrier, but breaks it silently. So apparently this thing, it breaks the sound barrier without causing a sonic boom, I guess.
Years and years that it took to get to this point, and we finally crossed that milestone.
All the work and the build-up getting the airplane to this point, and then to see that take to the sky for the first time.
So when it came to game day, I wasn't worried about anything because I knew the team had my back.
It has the promise to be a historic milestone towards the next era of commercial aviation.
I've worked with so many people for so long to make this happen, to actually see it take flight. What an experience.
I get it. It's a test of the aerodynamics.
It's a tremendous accomplishment for all of us associated with X-59.
What we're doing has impacts on the commercial aviation industry and has the opportunity to revolutionize commercial air travel.
To go prove a concept that at one point people doubted could be done. Pretty exciting.
I never would have guessed when I was 16 years old and I wanted to be a test pilot that I'd ever have the opportunity to do a first flight, let alone a first flight on an X plane.
Well, there you have it. From Quest, nasa.gov. That's Quest. All right. And, yep, that's going to do it for this video. And I will be back with another one later tonight. I'm doing 2 Swamp episodes in one day because I missed yesterday. I had last-minute plans for New Year's Eve. Understandably so, because it's the New Year's, you know. So Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It'll mean a lot to me if you subscribe. And I'll be dropping a new show every evening, Monday through Friday, covering the swamp and everyone living in it, the politicians, bureaucracies, agencies, and also I post daily episodes on X, so feel free to comment there too if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your night. Don't forget to tune in to this evening's Swamp episode, and God bless America.